Welcome everyone, good morning. Welcome to the first of Learning Curves Group's monthly webinar series. This is called Building the Future. This is a series which has been designed to enhance the learning that our housing and housing adjacent apprentices are doing, but also to provide some information, some learning, some CPD for anyone who attends. As you've seen from the marketing that we've been doing, it is open to anyone. So if you like this one and you want other people to come along, then please do feel free to share for our next one. My name's Lindsay Driscoll. I'm the apprenticeship manager for the housing and property team here at Learning Curve Group. Little bit about Learning Curve Group for those of you that are not already working with us. We're a national training and educational specialists. We've been around since about 2004. We offer a huge range of educational courses from flexible learning, military preparation colleges, hair and beauty, of course, apprenticeships. Key apprenticeship areas we're working in at the moment are health and social care, business professions, logistics, and housing and property. And housing and property is one of our biggest growth areas within the business as well. We're really fortunate today to welcome Nigel Finney and Trish Harrington from Chartered Institute of Housing's Professional Standards Committee. And they're here to speak to us today about professionalism, about the Professional Standards Committee, and everything to do with kind of how professionalism is important within the housing sector. We have the huge pleasure of welcoming Nigel and Trish to speak to us today about professionalism across the housing sector, the role of the PSC, the Professional Standards Committee. Nigel and Trish, thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to stop talking now and I'm going to hand over to you guys.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks, Lindsay. Shall I start with introductions and then Trish, you'll start with the presentation, yeah? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's great for you, for us to be with you. One of the roles of the Professional Standards Committee is actually to be ambassadorial, if that's the right phrase to use, to make sure that as many people in the sector know about the standards. So this is a great opportunity to share that. I perhaps should clarify that myself and Trish on the committee are, volunteers, as it were. We are not employees of the Chartered Institute of Housing, but we are empowered as members of the committee, as is Lindsay, because she's a member of the committee too, to actually get the word out there about professionalism. So it's a great opportunity to do that. Just a little bit about me before I hand over to Trish to start the actual presentation itself. As Lindsay said, I'm Nigel Finney. I've been in the social housing sector now in various roles for, 35 years or so. I've kind of ended my frontline executive career as a managing director of a housing association in Cambridgeshire, but for the last couple of years now, I'm a board member on two housing association boards. One is Watmos Community Homes, which has homes in Walsall and London, and also on a board of a housing association in North Wales, which is where I come from, called Group Cynefin, which has about 4,500 homes across North Wales. I take part in the CIH's mentoring programme, and maybe we get to talk about that later, and really enjoy mentoring. And also I'm chair of the Chartered Institute Housing's Professional Standards Committee for the last year or so, and I've got Trish as a really able and enthusiastic vice chair of that, but she'll tell you about that. And obviously Lindsay is one of our committed members as well, and we have about 10 or so, but I'll tell you about that later. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to hand over to Trish to introduce herself, and then she'll kick off the presentation. So it's great to see you all. Thanks, Trish.
Thanks, Nigel. So good morning, everyone. Great to see so many of you here today. Having studied my level 4 CIH apprenticeship 18 months ago, it's great to see so many people taking up these qualifications. So my name's Trish. I work for Abbury in the south. So we have homes from the southeast, so it's kind of Windsor area, right across the south, all the way up to the southwest, kind of in the Somerset Yeovil area. We've got around 50,000 homes, and it's a great place to be. And I'm their service improvement manager. I also am the vice chair, as Nigel said, of the Chartered Institute of Housing Professional Standards Committee. And I also sit on the Southwest Regional Board as well, so for the CIH. So lots going on. So hopefully today's session will really help you on your journey. So I'm going to share my screen and hope everything works okay. We did do a practice run, so hopefully everything should be okay. Lindsay, can I just check that you can see that okay?
That's looking good, yes.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. So, kind of what we're going to talk about today, well, really, professionalism is a call to action for housing professionals, and I hope this talk today will really help you on your journey towards professionalism. We'll also talk about those challenges and opportunities that are coming from that, any requirements, kind of what the CIH is doing at the moment to prepare for this, and then Nigel will guide you through what the Professional Standards Committee is all about, the things that we've been focusing on and what's to come. And there'll be opportunities at the end for you to ask any questions that you may have. So I always like to start my presentations with why is this important? And many of you will know that back in 2017, many lives were lost in the Grenfell fire tragedy. And the Grenfell inquiry really contained numerous references to tenants being treated in disrespectful ways, not being listened to, and there was no transparency and there was kind of this sense of institutional indifference. And then we've seen more recent tragedies such as Awa Bishak's death due to damp and mould, and the Housing Ombudsman's regular findings of severe maladministration have really kept this conversation at the forefront. And some of you may have seen recently that the Housing Ombudsman's annual complaints review for 22-23 has revealed kind of the number of severe maladministration findings, and that's increased by 323%. And we see that the majority of these complaints received by the Housing Ombudsman really relate to the behaviours and attitudes of staff. And this really led to the government publishing the Social Housing Green Paper, which was a new deal for social housing in 2018. And subsequently, the Social Housing White Paper, the Tenants Charter in 2020. And all of this was with the aim of improving how social housing is regulated. And we've recently seen the Social Housing Regulation Act to receive royal assent this year, and there's a real focus on professional service. And the regulator will then be able to set a standard of competence, and that will be a standard about professionalism, competence, skills, knowledge, and behaviours. And shortly we'll be getting a policy statement from the government that will set out what this will look like. And when this came about, we kind of had a look at who we feel that it may apply to. So what's coming out at the moment is that there's around 25,000 managers across the sector in relatively senior positions that will need to complete a qualification. And those managers have been broken down into a relevant manager, so that's someone in a senior housing executive or a senior housing manager, and there'll be someone as an executive that will be a registered provider, has a responsibility for the day-to-day management of the provision of services in connection with the management of social housing by the provider, and is part of the provider's senior management. And then a senior housing manager has also been identified, and that's an employee who is a senior housing and property manager as determined by reference to the description of the occupation of senior housing and property management, which has been published by the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education. And the last description of the senior housing manager covers a wide range of roles. So it can include roles such as a neighbourhood housing manager, a supported housing manager, for example, and it refers to as managing housing or property relating services, leading a team and taking responsibility for the cost effectiveness and efficiency of their business area. And what I will say to everybody that whilst the qualifications will be coming in, it's also everyone's responsibility to ensure their continuous improvement and that we're continually learning to be the best housing professional that we can be. And then those qualifications, what will they look like? Well, a senior housing executive would need to have a foundation degree from the Chartered Institute of Housing or a level 5 diploma in housing. And a senior manager would need to have a level 4 certificate in housing. And when we've been out talking to people to find out, you know, what do we hear when we talk about housing? Do people really understand what we do? And talking to our colleagues, what we're hearing is that people are finding it really hard to articulate what we do. And there's no single word like lawyer or doctor, for instance. And people don't necessarily understand what housing is. We also see, you know, behaviours that may not always be suitable, which adds to the stigma. And we don't really identify as a coherent group. So we often in housing hear people say, oh, I work in the finance team and I work in the repairs team. But actually, we're all housing professionals first. And we also hear that people say that it doesn't require the same level of knowledge, skills and behaviours as other more recognised professions. And despite all the challenges and attempts to rectify all of these things, the title matters in how other professionals see us. And so that leads us on to, why is professionalism important then? So for organisations, it offers board assurance that your staff have the right skills, knowledge and behaviours. It's compliant with legal, regulatory, statutory expectations, and it will support you to get ready for the policy landscape set out in the Social Housing Regulation Act. It will also benefit reputation and bottom line, so professional staff make good decisions and reduce the risk of things going wrong and provide a better service to your residents. And it is the right thing to do to invest in the professional development of your colleagues. And so the CIH, after hearing all of this, worked on something called the professional standards, and they work with members and other housing professionals and organisations and employers and people from beyond housing as well, and residents, to develop a set of standards that underlines our collective identity as a housing profession. So an understanding of what's important, what we stand for, and what we're trying to achieve. So on the screen there, you should see those 7 characteristics. So you've got integrity, inclusive, ethical, knowledgeable, skilled, advocate, and leadership. And they build on the 7 characteristics developed, tested, and refined to enable you to think about your professional development needs. So I don't know if anyone here, maybe we could do a show of hands. How many here have completed the professional standard self-assessment tool? Okay.
Got a couple of hands up.
Yeah, good. So we've got 4 or 5 people. So if you're not really sure what the tool is something that you'll find on the CIH website. So even if you're not a member, you can still undertake the self-assessment. But what it does is it asks you a series of questions, and then it will send you a report afterwards to tell you where your strengths are and where are some of the things that you may want to work on. It's a really helpful report. And, you know, whilst we know qualifications are extremely important, having those knowledge and behaviours is also as important. So going through that self-assessment, it really gives you the awareness of where you can start to look at your continuing professional development. And these have all been developed by the sector for the sector. So when you do the self-assessment and when you look at those 7 characteristics, know that they reflect the attitudes and behaviours that our residents expect and deserve. They focus on outcomes rather than activities. They're simple and really clear, so they avoid jargon. And I know in housing we use a lot of jargon and short-term words on different things. But this really brings it into everyday experiences and languages to help people. It's adaptable to enable you to sort of evolve and reflect a fast changing sector, because things are changing all the time. It inspires people to join and celebrate the value of our profession. We do some fantastic work in housing and really don't celebrate it enough. And we work alongside existing organisation competencies and values. So what we've actually done here at ABRI is we've actually looked at our values and behaviours and aligned them to the professional standards, which is really bringing it into the organisation. There's a focus on behaviours and characteristics that define us as a profession. So again, being a clear cohort so we all understand what a housing professional is. And it's applied across the profession, whatever role, position or specialism. And it reflects the breadth and diversity of the people who work in the housing sector. And the benefits of that self-assessment to individuals is that it really identifies your key values and behaviours required in the role, regardless of background, focus or level. And it's been really interesting because I've been doing this with my team the last few weeks, and where they thought they were really, really great in some areas, actually it's shown other areas that they can start to work on or even build upon some of that star quality that they already have. And it provides a benchmark against which to measure own current competence and future development. So you can do this more than once. Don't just take the self-assessment once. Make sure that you regularly do that so that you're continually checking against that and seeing what else you can add to. It enables recognition of boundaries of own competence and where escalation or further research is required, and it helps build your confidence to recognise and tackle inappropriate behaviour in others. It provides basis for identifying professional career development opportunities and enables recognition of own contribution to organisational goals and objectives, because we don't celebrate ourselves enough, do we, when we pick something off our personal development plans or something improves. And I think what this does, when you redo the self-assessment over time, you can really see where you are growing as a housing professional. And I think a lot of people say, why professionalism? You know, why do we need this? What are we trying to achieve? And we want to see a world where housing professionals are recognised and valued for their knowledge, skills and behaviours. So I talked a couple of slides ago about how when we're out and we're hearing colleagues talking about housing at the moment, we want to change that narrative. We want it to be really positive, and we want to be seen to have equal credible status to other professions. We want to use their skills, language and expertise to add value and change lives. And we really want to be a committed force for change across the sector. We want to understand the impact of our language and behaviours and attitudes and stand up for what is right and do the right thing, and really have pride in our jobs and the impact that we all make on a day-to-day basis. And hopefully we will all get to this point. So I'm going to pass over now to Nigel.
Thanks, Trish. That was what a brilliant canter through professionalism that was. You really took us on the journey there, so that was great and showed us what the basics are and the direction of travel, and we'll talk more about that at the end, hopefully. So I'm going to take you through 5 slides quite quickly, and then Trish and I are going to be posing some questions. That's when you do some work following the presentation. And my focus today really is to tell you about the actual Professional Standards Committee itself, what we're here for, what we do, and perhaps what some of the features are, and also to tell you about what either you and your organisations can do to prepare for what's coming down the line with regard to professionalism that the Act will prompt within the sector. So let's focus then on the Professional Standards Committee itself. So Chartered Institute Housing, you may not know this, but there are some 17,000 CIH members across the globe. In the UK itself, there are 12,000 members, and we'd like that to be more, and it's steadily growing because the CIH is the professional body across the sector. We'd like to think this is the CIH's moment, because with the professional agenda coming forward, what better organisation to really help to marshal that across the sector. So the CIH is governed by a governing board, which essentially, sets the strategy, make sure that the CIH is resourced correctly, and so on. But the governing body then delegates certain activities, and one of those activities is to develop the professional standards. And so the Professional Standards Committee has been formed as a subcommittee of the governing board. We have terms of reference and so on. And we also have a representative from the governing board on the committee, and that just happens to be Jill Haley, actually Jill Murray, she's just got married, who is the brand new president of the CIH. So Jill wants us all to be epic, so that's what I expect us all to be. That's her campaign across this year. So the Professional Standards Committee is in turn wanting to be epic, so we'll talk about that a bit later too, maybe. There are 12 members of the committee. We are all volunteers, and Trish is, and Lindsay is, and lots of other colleagues as well. We have formally, in our terms of reference, we have representation from the regions, England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland, and we also try to recruit to make sure that we are as diverse as possible in terms of gender, ethnic background and so on, age and so on. So we've recruited recently to try and have a wider range, a diverse range of voices, and obviously it may be that we have vacancies come up in the future and you may wish to consider yourself for it. And please don't rule yourself out if you're new to housing, or in a particular, feel you're in a particular niche in housing. That's not a problem at all. Have a look, and we'd encourage you to join if those opportunities come forward. So what do we actually do? If we turn to the next slide. Thanks, Trish. That's great. So yes, there's kind of 4 main things really we do. There are a few others, but these are the main ones. So we develop and we monitor the professional standards, and Trish went through those. So you'll see them on the CIH website. Some of you will be very familiar with them because you're going through various training and professional codifications, and hopefully you'll be very aware of them. And we have been involved in making sure they're fit for purpose, and we review them not so much on an annual basis, but on a rolling basis. But if any big changes are required, then the CIH executive will consult or use the Professional Standards Committee as a sounding board to check that, from our experience, widely drawn across the sector, that they are fit for purpose. The other job we have is really to promote those standards. So it's great that Lindsay invited us. We're really welcome, very happy to be here to take that ambassadorial role and to promote the standards as widely as possible. I'll let you into a little secret. Sometimes when we ask colleagues from across the sector, what do you know about the standards? Sometimes people tell us they don't know anything about the standards, even CIH members. So that is somewhat disappointing, I have to say. So given the urgency now and the importance of professionalism, it's really important that as many people know about them and can get behind them, can articulate them in their own way, and then, live and work by them as much as possible. So knowing about them is the starting point. And interestingly enough, part of that really is about dealing with complaints. The Professional Standards Committee has a delegated formal role from the governing body to deal with complaints about the kind of ethical and code of conduct aspect of the professional standards. So again, not many people know about this, but it is possible for anybody to complain about a CIH member, about their conduct and whether they've adhered to the code of conduct itself and ethics. Not so much about the policy procedures of the organisations they work for, but about their own conduct. It's something that we expect to see more of as the standards themselves and the professionalisation becomes more important. And why shouldn't it? We want to make sure that people are held to account for their behaviours and their professionalism. So we do look at complaints. We don't get many, that's the truth, but we do get a handful, and we will deal with them. The final part of our kind of remit really is about the continuing professional development, because that's as important as getting for qualification or feeling that you are competent, because that doesn't stand still, does it? It's not a static situation. We must always grow and learn. And it's important that the CIH in particular has an attractive offer for you. So events and seminars and so on allow you to do that. What we're going to be looking at in the next 12 months as a committee is how can we make that more accessible, easier to use. Other professional bodies have apps and all sorts of things that you can use to monitor and track that progress. So Trish, if you can move on, please. Great. So recent work that we've been doing on the committee. We meet about 4 times a year. Sometimes we have working groups as well. We've raised the profile of the Professional Standards Committee. You may have seen things on LinkedIn and Twitter and so on. We do our best to keep the profile high, not so much of the committee itself, but of the standards. So we have had this and have a social media presence. We might even tweet or do some on LinkedIn about this seminar. In fact, there has been stuff there already. So if you see that, please follow and pass it on. That would be great. We've recently enhanced and made easier actually the complaints process, so it's easier to navigate and find on the website. We have looked at the self-assessment tool that Trish has told you about and made sure that's as easy as possible to use. We also look at how many people are using it. It's quite interesting that almost as many non-CIH members use it as members, and we also like to see people sort of using the tool and then hopefully engaging with the online learning and going on to more formally into the qualification side of things, and we like to track that as well. Recently, we've refreshed the membership of the Professional Standards Committee. We have a 3-year tenure, which can be extended to 6. And when that tenure comes to an end, we have new people joining. So again, watch this space. If we might advertise vacancies in the near future, perhaps, and it'd be great to have new members coming on board. And we welcomed 2 new members yesterday at our Professional Standards Committee, and that was great to see them. Next slide, please. The other thing that we did at our meeting, so this is very current yesterday, and Lindsay and Trish were really integral to that, were to develop and sign off on our new 3-year plan. And that's very much about supporting the CIH's corporate plan, which will be launched in April next year. So that's about embedding and developing the standards, a better offer for CIH members and perhaps others for their professional development, and then to ensure that the CIH is very active and has a voice to government and other stakeholders in developing that particular agenda. So if we turn now to the next slide, which talks about what organisations can do now to prepare. Now, I think you might have heard that we are expecting from government a policy statement on what the kind of formal professional requirements will be. That was expected in autumn. Autumn came and went. Now we're told it will be coming out just before Christmas. So let's see. As we may have noticed, the government been rather busy in the last few days, so maybe it won't be Christmas. But that doesn't mean to say the sector shouldn't be preparing. Absolutely, we should be. So CIH has been talking to the various organisations it works with to suggest what can be done and to find out what already is being done. So it may be already part of this, that your organisations are doing it. So we've estimated that there are about 25,000 managerial roles across the sector that will be impacted by this. It may be more, it may be less. We don't know yet. So what organisations are doing are kind of carrying out audits of their workforce to see who might be in these roles, what qualifications they currently have, and how this might match up to what we think the requirements might be, looking at the gaps and so on, and then putting in place plans to help their staff get to where they need to be. And organisations like Learning Curve, we'd like to think, are really much front and centre of that kind of thing. And of course, there's a huge financial element to this, because training that number of people, there's both time and money to be resourced. So that's not easy. So, all those things have to be planned in for. Looking at, current training programs, is this being to be done in-house? Is it to be done, are individuals to be supported to do it? Is it going to be done by CIH or whatever? Now, we know in the recent past, lots of universities that used to run housing courses haven't been. Those have been withdrawn, but actually we've seen some interest now in those organisations perhaps now rekindling that interest and running courses and so on. So, that new opportunities could come in there as well. One of the other things that we're grappling with, and until that policy statement comes out, we don't really know, is the requirements are that you either have these qualifications or are working towards those qualifications. Well, what on earth does that mean? So again, we want some clarity, because, quite rightly, if someone has just started a formal course, then they can't be expected to finish it tomorrow, because if it lasts 18 months, it lasts 18 months. So does that mean they are, do they meet the requirements whilst going through that? Well, how long does that last? What if someone goes on maternity leave or whatever it might be? So there's lots of subtle detail there. There's also the important thing about those who already are qualified, but if your qualification, like mine, which I got from the Tottenham College of Technology about 35 years ago, I don't even know if that organisation still exists, but the fact is, how does someone like me, who's on a board, if I need to, demonstrate that my qualification is still current? I attend CPD events or whatever it is, but at this moment in time, we don't know. So again, it will be interesting to find that out. But as I say, although those policy statements are not there, your organisations should already be doing this kind of assessment to make sure that we are ready, because the regulator will be testing that at some point, either in 24 or 24-25 financial year, as part of their assessments. And we know now the regulator will be that much more proactive and will be expecting to see robust evidence that we have the right qualifications with the right people across our organisations. So, folks, that's a quick whistle-stop tour. I apologise we've had to canter through it because there's quite a lot to get through, but hopefully Trish has set the scene about what professionalism is. I've told you a little bit about what the committee itself does, and then also we ended there on what we think organisations should be doing. So then Trish and I thought about, well, what kind of questions can we pose to you? And of course, we're happy to take any questions that you might have as well. So two things we thought that we could be thinking about here is, how do you think the sector should respond to the professionalism requirements? I've listed a bit of it there, but you might have some good ideas, in terms of preparing for the implementation of the Social Housing Regulation Act. And also, this might be a slightly leading question, but, is having people who are qualified, whatever that means, all that is required to ensure that organisations are fit for purpose? So, if you're on a board or like I'm, how am I as a board member? Great, we've got certain people qualified. Does that mean our organisation is fit for purpose? So those are two questions to start the ball rolling. But as Lindsay said, we're happy to take, any other questions that we might have. So over to Lindsay to chair this part of the meeting, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks, Nigel and Trish, for that great insight that you've provided for us today into professionalism, why it's important, what might be coming, and to the Professional Standards Committee as well. We haven't had many questions or any questions really in the chat other than Susan Bromley. Hi, Susan, nice to see you. Can we have access to the slides afterwards? Would that be something that we'd be able to provide to the people who've attended today? I could do a PDF of the slides and send those over. Yeah, okay, brilliant. So Susan, anyone else who's interested, I will make sure that we get those slides over to you. I have popped a link into the chat for the Professional Standards self-assessment. So if anyone's interested in doing that, or exploring the professional standards in a little bit more detail, there is a link right there for you. And obviously, if any of you are working through a apprenticeship at the moment, your coaches will be able to guide you through that or support you with that if you need some support with it. Another question from Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Nice to see you. Are you aware of any consultation meetings? It would be good to feed into discussions as there are lots of queries around the qualifications and roles. Yes. I don't know if you want to come in on this as well, Trish. I mean, the CIH itself has been working closely with government behind the scenes. That consultation now has concluded, I think, Trish, hasn't it? So formally, so we are now waiting for the policy guidance. So what the CIH has been doing is it's been gathering information from its regional groups in the past. So Jenny, you haven't necessarily missed the boat in the sense that hopefully you've been talking about in your organisations and that's been reflected in regional meetings. When the policy statement comes out, of course, that's when, although we can't influence that policy, that's when the Institute will be then working then to promote whatever and to give guidance throughout the sector so we can make sure that we're properly ready for it. So, whilst that consultation is over, it's not the end of the journey to tailor, I suppose, our individual organisations. And that's the other thing, in the organisations you work for, it's important that CIH members, are front and centre in helping to tailor how organisations are going to be responding to that. I don't know, Trish, have you got any other comments to make on that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I mean, something that we've actually set up at ABRI that some of you might be interested in doing in your organisations is a CIH club. And the CIH club is a place where members come together. We come together bi-monthly. We have a representative from the regions. The regional manager from CIH comes along and they will give us updates of what's going on at CIH. They will also listen to feedback from us. They've also put forward people to come and speak as well. So we've had presentations on the Better Social Housing Review this year, where James Prestwich come along, for example, and we've also had the Social Housing Regulation Bill discussed. So if that's something that you might be interested in setting up in your organisation, feel free to reach out to me after the call and I can kind of give you a bit of guidance. I did do an in conversation on YouTube a little while ago, so I can send that link out to you. But also, since I've moved company, we've got a really great agenda here for how we run them. So again, I can talk that through with you. But you'll find me on LinkedIn, and just feel free to send me a message, and I can talk it through to you. But that's a really great way of feeding into CIH, but also CIH sharing stuff with your organisation too. Thanks, Nigel.
Yeah. It's great,
it's a really good idea.
I've just noticed, Lindsay, Susan Bromley's put a second comment. Susan's epic this morning. 2 comments.
Epic,
thank you. And it's a great comic, Susan. Being professional qualifications are a good investment of teams, and this helps to have more professional teams, but still need to have staff that want to make a difference and are caring to help and improve the sector. You're answering our second question there, aren't you, Susan, really well, because the kind of formal qualifications and technical element of the standards are one thing, but if you look at the standards, you'll see that running through all of them is a kind of core about ethical behaviour, about leadership, about being inclusive, and about acting with integrity. And that's really important because, as Trish said earlier on, if you think about Grenfell and the damp and mould thing, you could, easily make a case that there wasn't much integrity being shown there. And, I'm not making a judge about individuals, but, the sector certainly has to take account of that. And I think, Susan, you're right, that element is really important. And I think if you, I'm going to plug the self-assessment here, because that's what Trish and Lindsay and me do all the time. We want to get people doing that self-assessment. It's free, by the way, so just get on there and give it a go. And it gives you some really rich information about yourself. And it shows you where you are, you perhaps meet the requirements straight away, or where you may perhaps have an area where you could develop a bit more. One thing we've been talking about in the committee is the idea that either as individuals, what's important as a professional is to conduct yourself in reflective practice, isn't it? Where am I? What did I do yesterday? What am I going to do tomorrow? What did I do that could have done better? And could the professional standards have helped me do that? And I think just doing that, you're actually demonstrating a good level of professionalism, because it's important to see yourself in context of those standards, and thinking about that really helps you do that and how you could do something differently next time. But the other thing you can do is, whether your organisation is getting on with this or not, is talk amongst your teams about how things have been going, and maybe take the assessment, not in any sort of competitive way, but talk about the results and how you can help each other move forward on those assessments. And you can do the assessment at one point in time, see how it looks, and then carry out some activities or whatever it may be, and doing a bit later and see how you developed it. So I think that tool is a really live thing you can use from time to time. And if you're a team leader, the other thing the committee has talked about is, why not, with the permission of your teams, obviously in a very open way, is perhaps get the team to do it and look at whether you've got across your team, because Susan, you talked about teams, whether your team as a collective has the knowledge, the right approach across it to actually be effective for the organisation. And again, you can talk in your teams in a open and honest way about how that can develop. And if it means you then go on to doing some of the e-learning on the website there, that would be great. Or then that helps you feed back to your organisation about what are the learning requirements or gaps that might need to be filled. So, there's lots of things you can do yourself in preparation, or just as a CIH member anyway, you'd want to do that. So, that continuing professionalisation and understanding where you sit on that, on the self-assessment tool would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I could build on what you said there, Nigel, around doing it in that group setting, I think also that there'll be people in your team that may have real star qualities in some areas, and some may struggle. And actually, it's a great way to get teams achieving together and learning from one another. So, knowing, having a knowledge of what your strengths and weaknesses are of a team, and who can support one another to kind of build their strengths, is really, really crucial. The other thing that Nigel mentioned right at the beginning was around mentoring. And for me, when I was doing my apprenticeship, particularly having a mentor to support me through that process, a CIH mentor has been really, really valuable to me. And I think sometimes, I always say, I think when you're embarking on new things, you kind of you have lots of firsts, don't you? So it might be the first time that you're writing a report, for instance, and to be able to have a mentor to kind of guide you and give examples of what they've done in the past can then help you shape your approach and the way you want to do things as well. So that's something else for you to think about. And there is a CIH mentoring platform on the CIH website that you can access as a member. And I've just seen a message there, Lindsay, around from Court saying around apprenticeships. I don't know whether this is right or not, but I know when I studied, you had your membership while you were an apprenticeship, while you were doing your apprenticeship, and then you applied to become a member once that completed. Is that still the case?
Yes. So Marlborough Court, sorry, I can only see your court name, but you're probably one of our learners, judging by that name. Yes, if you're doing either the embedded CIH certificate, or if CIH is your endpoint assessment organisation, then yes, you will get automatic membership. You'll have filled in a form with your coach. If you don't remember doing that, or if you want some more advice on it, then ask your coach, and we'll make sure that you've got that membership. But yeah, the advice that you've just been given there by Trish and Nigel is absolutely invaluable, as far as I can see. And that is, not just about the CIH mentorship, but if you're all going to do as part of a team, you identify that you've got some strengths and some maybe development areas within your team, then mentoring each other around those behaviours can be really important as well, and can be really useful as well. And I think one thing that really, really stands out from what we've said today is that although professionalisation of the sector is a thing, as individuals, we can all make a difference. We can all start that journey towards professionalisation, and we can start to build that together. So it's not just about waiting for your organisation to do things or to put things in place. It's about you taking responsibility for your skills and your behaviours, and making sure that your professional practice is ethical, is legal, and that you are working towards these standards yourself as an individual. So every single person in this webinar can really make a difference within the sector. Have we got any other questions that anyone wants to pop into the chat? They've had some really, really insightful statements and questions so far. A lot of you I'm connected with anyway, so if you do think of any questions afterwards and you want me to pass those on to Trish or to Nigel, then please do send those to me via email if you want to, and I can put you in touch. And Jenny, you and I work quite closely together, so if you want me to put you in touch with Trish around the CIH clubs, then I'd be more than happy to make that introduction properly for you to discuss that as well. Any other questions at all before I sort of bring this to an end? That will do, Jenny. Just to let you know then, if anyone who's here is not currently doing a qualification, or if you're you're thinking about, you're on the verge of thinking about applying for a qualification, John Williams is in the chat here. He's one of our key business development managers, so he is someone that you can connect with if you want to make any inquiries about it. If you want to make any inquiries about doing qualifications through Learning Curve Group, you can always come to me. All of you will have my contact details, so please do feel free to reach out and ask us for any further information about how your organisation, how your individuals can work towards this professionalisation within your organisations. Just want to say a massive, massive thank you to Trish and to Nigel, our guest speakers today, for being here, taking that time to give us, to impart your knowledge on us, and to give us that amazing guidance as well. And to everyone who's joined us today, thank you very much. We had 33 people sign up. We had 33 people attend, which is fantastic. I really thought we would have some people not attending, but we have also had a lot of interest in the recording, so I will be sending that around to everyone who's here today. I'll get you a copy of the slides, and obviously we're going to share it with other people who had that interest as well. I have just popped a quick feedback form into the chat. It's 5 questions, really, really quick. It helps us, if you have got time to fill that in, it just helps us to see what you think of the series, and it's got a question in there to help to see if there's anything you'd like to see in future webinars as well. And just to let you know as well, our next webinar is on the 12th of December. We've got the incredible author, award-winning community safety and ASB specialist, and the founder director of Janine Green and Associates ASB, Janine Green. So please look out for the posts on LinkedIn and from your coaches as well, so you can register for that one too. And Janine, just to let you know, is part of the Professional Standards Committee as well, so it's nicely linked as we move forward with that. And surprising no one, Janine is going to be talking about antisocial behaviour, because that's her bag, that's what she does. Thank you very much everyone for attending. Nigel, Trish, again, thank you so much for your time. It is very, very much appreciated.
Thanks, Lizzie. Thanks, everyone. Great to see you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye. Bye.